This is Local Matters on CBS 17 News at 4.
The nation's 10th largest state school system will have a new leader in 2025.
Republican Michelle Morrow and Democrat Mo Green are on the ballot hoping to win that role. CBS 17's Russ Bowen is back with us now for the second part of his interview with the former Guilford County School Superintendent Mo Green.
Yeah, earlier we talked about new challenges that teachers face. We also discussed the need for student resource officers, Green's take on private school vouchers, and school literacy. One of the platforms you've run on is proficiency in things like reading and writing in our elementary schools. Where are we today compared to where we should be, and how do we get there to where you believe we need to be?
Yeah, so I would say that we are at a place where we are okay, but not really as great as we need to be with regards to reading, as an example. And here I'm really looking at the National Assessment of Educational Progress as opposed to necessarily our own sort of state assessments, but even those would suggest there's room for improvement there as well. There are pockets where there are students who are doing well, but then there are other pockets where there are students who are not doing well. How do we get improvement? I certainly believe that the work that has already been done with regards to early literacy skills will be key to us improving those outcomes. As it turns out, I actually worked with the current superintendent on implementing early literacy efforts here in North Carolina. There was an implementation team that was working with 5 of the states as to how best to implement early literacy skills. And so we need to continue that work. I think we'll need to expand it to our middle schools as well, where there are struggling readers there as well.
And there's a different variable that's out there than when you and I grew up, right? We had books in our hand over the summer, or we were during the weekend when our mothers might have said, you need to read this chapter book. Now you're competing with a tablet or a phone and social media. How do you approach that to make sure the right amount of attention is paid on actual reading as opposed to texting and posting and writing by text, even if it's in long form?
Yeah, and so I do believe this is an area where we've got to have continued conversation and really sort of begin to figure out how to balance the wonderful parts of what technology brings us and then the distractions that it also brings us as well. We may be at a place where we've got to eliminate or certainly reduce the amount of exposure that our students have to things like social media and texting and things, particularly while in school, so that students can focus on the subject matter that they're being presented with.
Is there a particular trend or a campaign slogan that you've heard from the other side that worries you about what could take place if you lose this election in our public education system? So
there are certainly things that are deeply concerning. One would certainly be book banning in our schools. Another certainly would be this sense of, we've got to have 2 SROs in every one of our schools, almost suggesting that our schools have reached a point that they're so unsafe that we've got to have 2 SROs there, and I think that is not an accurate depiction of what's going on in our schools. What would be an accurate depiction? So I certainly think that our schools are, for the large part, very safe places. Certainly there are incidents that do occur in our schools, and we need to be sure that we're managing those. I do believe, as opposed to increasing the number of SROs, as an example, we need to be thinking about having more mental health professionals in our schools, working with our students who are dealing with a lot of mental health challenges. I think about, for example, our school psychologists as an example, and the ratios that their association would say would be appropriate. They would say it should be about 1 to every 500 students. We are in North Carolina at about 1 to every 1,800 students.
Do you think there should be an SRO in every school?
I don't know that there needs to be an SRO necessarily in every school. There's certainly, this is a place where you need to sort of think about what is the makeup of the school and whether then it makes sense to have it.
School vouchers. Where do you think that money would be better spent as opposed to opportunity scholarships for private schools in North Carolina?
So I would look first to increasing teacher compensation and educator compensation. This is a place where North Carolina has fallen woefully behind other states with regards to funding overall. If you compare North Carolina to the national average of $16,000 per student, Virginia's a little over 11,000. Excuse me. Virginia's over 14,000. South Carolina's a little over 15,000. North Carolina's a little over $11,000 per student. So we need to get more money into our public school system overall, and then where would I place it? I certainly would place it first and foremost with increasing the compensation for our educators so that we can appropriately recruit them, retain them, and certainly grow them as well.
What about charter schools? In many of the counties in North Carolina, there is no charter school. And that's one argument that, proponents of school vouchers have made is that, well, in some of these counties, there are no alternatives but private schools, and we need to give these kids an opportunity to find another place to be educated.
So what I would say in response to that is, in this particular position, as opposed to maybe more generally what folks might do and think about in other positions, this position is the one that should be the chief advocacy officer for public schools. And so I would say in response to that, that we need to then have those dollars be placed into our public schools so that they can become the robust and great choice for our parents and students as well.
And you can find my previous interview with Green's opponent, Michelle Morrow, that aired last week at CBS17.com. Guys.
All right, Russ, good work there. Thank you.